Good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.
Oh, you're so cool, Brewster!
Everybody's a suspect!
Hey, Ted, where the hell's Parks, bro?
Don't fuck with the Chuck!
Welcome back to Toe Tag Reviews. I'm Chuck, and today we're going to be talking about Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master. Came out in 1988 and was directed by Renny Harlin. Originally, Robert Englund was not on board with the project, as he deemed it was the MTV nightmare.
It's energetic, it's kinetic. They were using tricks and techniques, both in camera and for post, that I couldn't imagine.
But Renny Harlin won him over on the project. Toy Newkirk, who played Sheila in the movie, had her first on-screen kiss with Freddy, and it didn't go as planned because his dentures fell into her mouth.
And it's like saliva and probably what he ate that day and just crud.
Also, Toy Newkirk almost had to do ADR, which is automatic dialogue replacement, because director Renny Harlin said she didn't sound black enough, which that's a thing. They ran out of money while filming, and it shows because Rick was supposed to fall down the elevator shaft and into a void, but instead he fights an invisible Freddy. It's one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. Before we dive into the film, I'm gonna give my brother Austin a shout out. He's super stoked that I'm covering this. He said this was his favorite installment. I hope you enjoy the vid, bud. On to the film. The movie begins with a bitchin' ass track from Tuesday Night, who's also the new Kristen Parker in the film. She has a dream that she goes back to the Elm Street house. She pulls Kincaid and Joey into her dream. She tries to warn them that Freddy's coming back. They pretty much tell her to cut it out. He's dead, he's buried.
You're putting one serious dent in my beauty sleep.
Kristen goes to pick up Rick and Alice for school. We meet Debbie and Dan Jordan.
We are talking one major league hunk.
Sheila shows up and she's picked on by a jock, and Debbie stands up and pretty much puts his ass in check right away. I love that part. We see Rick doing some half-ass karate boxing thing. It's like a training for something, but I don't know who looks worse, him or Trey Songz from Texas Chainsaw 3D. His dad ends up coming home, and let's face it, this dude's a turd that needs to be flushed. Am I right? Like, he's always bitching at his kids about the littlest things. I don't know. I can't stand people like that. Kincaid wakes up in a junkyard that was in Dream Warriors. His dog takes a fiery ass piss right where Freddy was buried. Next thing you know, we get this cool sequence of his skeletons kind of coming back together and he's being brought back to life. I like that part. I will admit I like that part. Fred Meister has returned, and Kincaid pushes a car over and crushes him, but it's Freddy fucking Krueger. Freddy ends up stabbing Kincaid in the stomach and kills him. As Joey dozes off, there's a poster on the wall of a super hot pinup girl. She's in his bed, literally in his waterbed, which waterbeds are dope as shit. Bring them back. Freddy shows up and delivers yet another classic one-liner before he kills Joey.
How's this for a wet dream?
Rick goes to his sister Alice's room and tells her that she needs to stick up to Dad, and he shows off his amazing kung fu skills. Alice tries it. She looks god-awful, but to be fair, she looks better than what I could do, so. Next day at school, Kristen is worried about Joey and Kincaid because they're not at class. She freaks out and bonks her head on the wall and knocks herself out. Dan shows up to the Crave Inn, a nod to Wes Craven, which is a nice little detail right there. Rick and Kristen show up and explain to Alice that Joey and Kincaid are dead. At dinner, Kristen's mom gives her these sleeping pills and Kristen freaks out, and rightfully so. Like, your parents just drugged you pretty much. As the sleeping pills start kicking in, we get this really cool overhead shot of like her body kind of going in and out, and you can tell they're starting to kick in. We get this really cool overhead shot of Johnny Depp in a magazine, and it was a little cameo because he played Glenn in the first Nightmare on Elm Street. Since the sleeping pills kick in, Kristen dreams that she's on a beach. Here's the VHS rewind moment.
Clear! Clear.
The fucking Freddy shark. Like, how cool is that? And then when he's on the beach, he throws the Ray-Bans on, like, styling and profiling, baby. Classic moment. Freddy yeets her ass and ends up throwing her into this lake of fire, pool of fire. I don't know. He like throws her through this boiler and she's on fire. Alice and Rick go to her house, but like, look how fucking beautiful that house is. That thing is huge. Kristen died. Rick and Alice watch videos of Kristen and how happy Rick used to make her. Alice feels connected to Kristen now because in the dream world, she gave her power to, like, she passed on her power to her. During this exam, Sheila and Alice doze off and we get the second VHS rewind moment. Freddy literally sucks the soul out of Sheila and it's so fucking cool. Alice storms off. Rick goes after her, but he ends up running like Michael Myers did in Halloween 2. Dan goes to visit Alice at work and asks why Freddy's after her, and she tells him that he can't get the new kids, so he's using her kind of like as an anchor. We get a cameo from producer Robert Shea. He's giving some lecture about the Dream Master. Rick goes to the stall to take a nap, but Kristen shows up and she's looking flame broiled, dude. She's looking rough. He gets trapped in the elevator. It takes him to, I think, level 13, if I remember right, and that's where this incredible fight sequence happens. Rick fights Invisible Freddy, and it's kung fu. What is not to love about that? And the Academy Award for the best fight sequence goes to Rick Johnson. Because, I mean, this is peak fucking cinema right now. This is acting at its finest. After Rick's funeral, Alice goes home and all of a sudden she's a master with karate and kung fu and nunchucks, apparently. 5 minutes ago, she couldn't even do a fucking front kick. Are you kidding me? Alice sneaks out to meet up with Dan, but doesn't find him, so she pulls a Chuck and goes to watch a movie. Obviously, that's what you do. It must have been as boring as this film because she ends up falling asleep. She gets sucked into the movie and Freddy pretty much tells her to bring him more, and it's hinting at Debbie. She wakes up from her dream and ends up going to meet Dan, and while Debbie is working out, Freddy gives another one-liner.
No pain, no gain.
And we see her elbows literally break in half, and it's so fucking cringy, but the way it's executed is so cool. She ends up turning into an insect. Freddy ends up crushing her in a box. I don't know, dude. Alice and Dan end up crashing his truck. Dan's pretty fucked up at this point, so he goes to the hospital and has to get immediate surgery. She goes home and takes a bunch of sleeping pills and arms up with all this gear that she got from everyone who died in the film. She pulls a Godzilla and does this corny ass flying drop kick right through a mirror and enters the dream world. Dan wakes up and he ends up leaving Alice in the dream world to fight Freddy. She gives him a couple solid ass combos and Freddy's just eating that shit like a champ. She electrocutes him right through the chest and you see like this perfect hole in his heartbeat and everything. Really cool shit. And then she shows him his reflection, and that is what ultimately destroys Freddy Krueger in this movie. His reflection. But all the souls that are in his body and in his chest, they all come to life and kind of protrude and like hold him down and shit. And the effects right here look straight out of Society. And if you've seen Society, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Super wet, super slimy, ooey gooey, just great shit. Freddy is defeated once more and the movie comes to an end with Freddy's reflection in the water when Dan tosses the coin. Yeah.
Good night.
Not the biggest fan of this movie. Toe tag score, I'd give it a 2 out of 5. The pros, it had good effects and it had some solid kills, I'll say that. The cons is basically the whole fucking movie. It's pretty boring. It just has a lot of plot holes and a lot of just what the fuck moments that really don't need to be in the movie. They could have had a such stronger story if they tried. This has overall been my review for A Nightmare on Elm Street: The Dream Master. As always, I'm Chuck. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Until then, see you later.